Hello, I am very happy to be with you. I hope for 15 minutes. We will take the challenge to reduce 1 hour to 50 minutes, and we will try to be as much focusing as possible. I am Frédéric Doche, chairing the the Management Control Committee of IAFEI and also the Management Control Group of DFCG, the CFO French Association. And I am CEO and founder of Décision Performance Conseil and DPC Asia. To address the topic today of management control innovation, I will be with Cecile Falchier, who is CFO of EMEA for enterprise market for Sage. I will be with Stefano Grassi, who is CFO of Luxottica, and we have Ysmael, who is CFO of Ayala in Philippines. Perhaps some words about your company, Cecile?
Sure, good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be in front of you this afternoon. Briefly, I've got 20-year experience in international finance, mainly in business partnering functions and transformation finance functions in healthcare industry, B2B services, and software industry. So I'm the CFO Europe for Enterprise Market Sage. So Sage, some of you know probably, is a UK-based technology company. It's listed in London. It's 14,000 people. It's 6 million customers. And it's a company that provides business solutions, global business solutions to the entrepreneur. Whatever I would say the size of the business, it starts from the startup and it goes up to the mid-market companies. It's a company that is obviously has to be an innovative company. We have to bring innovation to our customers to help them to support their expansion. And we bring some cloud solutions and on-premises solutions to enable with mobility and obviously with solutions in terms of business analytics and performance management. And it goes from treasury solutions to accounting solutions. We are present in 24 countries, and in Italy, we are represented by a Gruppo Formula that you may know pretty well on the Italian market.
Stefano, some words about Luxottica and you?
Thank you, Frédéric. I'm Stefano Grassi, Group CFO for Luxottica. I've been 9 years with General Electric Company, most of the time in the United States, and then spent some time in Europe. Joined Luxottica about 8 years ago. Spent 8 wonderful years in this amazing company. For those of you that don't know Luxottica, Luxottica is the largest eyewear manufacturer and distributor of glasses across the world. We are present in more than 130 countries. We have a dual listing in Italian Stock Exchange as well as in the New York Stock Exchange. Our market cap is around 30 billion euro, and we are a company that have operations, 12 manufacturing facilities across the world. We have a wholesale distribution network of over 100,000 doors across the world. And we do have a retail network that is very well expanded with more than 7,000 stores. So many of you might not know the Luxottica as a brand, but I'm sure when I talk about brands like Ray-Ban, Oakley, and Persol, and a lot of the licensed brands for which we manufacture glasses, like Bulgari, Tiffany, Dolce & Gabbana, Prada, you name it, I think you all become more familiar with a company that is probably you know, one of the most important companies in the Italian market, one of the best well-known and respected company. I would say a company in which I'm very happy to work with, and it's really, you know, pretty unusual, if you want, in the Italian market. It's a fast-growing company, and that's something for which I'm very pleased to be part of. And obviously, I thank you, Frédéric, for being part of this panel.
Thank you, Stefano. Jimmy, a couple of words about Ayala in Philippines.
Yeah, Ayala Land. Hello. Yeah, I'm from Ayala Land. Ayala Land is probably well, it's actually quite a diversified company, real estate company It's part of the Ayala group of companies, which has about 180 years of history in the Philippines. We're the biggest company in the group, market capitalization of $11.5 billion. Small, probably, relative to European size, but large enough in the Philippine context. We're probably the third or fourth largest company in terms of market cap. We're quite diversified. We are into residential development. We build and sell condominiums, house and lots, as well as lots only. We also build and sell and lease office buildings, primarily business process outsourcing in nature right now. We also have shopping centers that we lease out. And we have a portfolio of hotels, both branded as well as our own brand. We are also into resort development. We have our own construction company that does all of our construction projects, which is probably now the largest in the Philippines, and our own property management company that manages all the properties upon completion. And recently, we also went into retail by investing in, in Family Mart, which is a Japanese franchise, convenience store franchise, as well as department store and supermarket in joint venture with local retailers. And recently as well went into healthcare by establishing a partnership with a small but up-and-coming operator to establish clinics and hospitals all over the Philippines. So it's quite diversified in terms of scope, and as a group CFO, I basically oversee all the operations of the different companies. There are CFOs by business units. We are decentralized as a company, but with a strong corporate center that actually manages all the affairs of the different companies to ensure that there's unanimity of purpose and alignment in the overall objectives of the company. I was also fortunate to have been given a chance to effectively handle an operating role. I'm also the president and CEO of another real estate company that we recently acquired, which is the developer of the third largest business district in the Philippines. So it's my scope is quite diverse. Other than the traditional finance functions like treasury, accounting, planning and control, internal audit, investor relations and compliance, I also handle risk management, tax management, IT, as well as supply chain. So it's quite diverse, and I'm happy again as well to be here with you.
Thank you. So, management control. First of all, some words about the Management Control Committee. It's one of the 5 committees of IAFEI. You have the list of members here, and we have some of them in the room, but we don't have the time to have all names cited. So we will just focus today on the result of the Observatory of Management Control. International Observatory of Management Control has been launched 5 years ago to compare activities, processes, methodology, and tools, management information system, of the management controller around the world. This is an observatory which is managed with a working group based in France and the IAFEI Management Control Committee. The objective is also to identify the best practices and to have a better understanding of the management control role, knowing that there are different names for the same in France, contrôleur de gestion, but we will cover financial controller, FP&A, performance manager, and different names like that. The observatory is sponsored by Décision Performance Conseil and DPC Asia. Décision Performance Conseil is a consulting firm with 4 main domains of expertise. Corporate performance management is the first one. Innovation and digital transformation is the second one. Process optimization and risk monitoring is the third one, and we are also working in project management area, mainly transformation projects. We are working for a small and large firm in different industry including banking and insurance, including services, luxury, but also industry and hospitality. We are working, we are based in Paris and in Hong Kong. We have an office in Hong Kong to be able to help our clients to develop in China and not only in Hong Kong, but also in Singapore and China. Coming back to International Observatory of Management Control, it's a survey which is managed each year with the support of 19 international partners that you have on this slide. We spread the survey via internet in 29 countries and gather answer and then analysis and result. So I will present the result for this year. And we will start with the panel profile. We have a panel profile including the different industry sector and the different size of the company, with large company with a huge turnover and also smaller and medium size. What we discovered this year about our panel profile is more women. It was the case last year that it seems that management controllers are more and more including women. We have 6 percentage points more this year versus 2014. In the panel, we have more than half companies experiences growth in sales, which is interesting. And we also ask questions about the name the management controller should have. And what we have discovered this year is that in Europe, the word performance manager would be much more adapted to the term. Instead, in the US, management controller would be preferred. It's something which has to be discussed because the fact that the name is different between country, financial controller, performance manager does not help the management controller to have a standardized role. We will cover the different part of the survey, but very quickly, and I will give time to Cecile, Stefano, and Jimmy for some reaction. Some key figures coming from our survey. First, in the middle, 72% of the controller working in big firms consider big data is important. I think it's a major fact, knowing that big data are often projects led by marketing, focusing on customer relationship, eventually fraud, but not enough used by finance director or management controller to be able to improve their analysis. So we will focus on this. We found that 75% of the companies are using benchmarking, both internal benchmarking and external benchmarking. And I think we have seen in the 3 past years this rate increasing. I think it's much more important. And for example, when we had the CEO of Doche this morning, he was saying that one of the main way of using big data is by benchmarking, internal benchmarking, and identifying patterns, comparing different industry and different area. We have 31% of the company publishing their reports within 5 days, and it's a much better rate than last year, and we will focus on that. We have 29% of our companies using ZBB, zero-based budgeting, as a methodology to improve their cost, and specifically in public sector, we will come back to that. And we also have 51% of the forecast produced in less than 1 week, which is faster and faster. So we will cover activities, processes, methodology, and management control very quickly. If you want a detailed result, they will be published in December, or you can get this presentation very easily. Activities and processes. So we asked the management controller about his activities. You have on the left the main activities when we can find planning and budgeting, reporting, but also forecast. What we can see is reporting is taking less time to the management controller each year because the automatization of reporting, of gathering information is much more efficient, and we will come back to that. Predominant activity is then planning and budgeting and forecasting variance analysis. Controller is also involved in other area, and in 2015 we can see that cash forecast, merger and acquisition, and environment, RSC, sustainability reporting are three areas where the controller is much more involved, which is changing. If we just analyze the time the management controller is spending compared to the added value he thinks he has, we can see on the right corner, top, planning and budgeting and forecasting, where he thinks he has a lot of added value and he's spending a lot of time. We can see that that reporting is on the left corner. That means that he does not have a very high added value, but he has to spend a lot of time. And we can see that working with operational department, working on business review, being able to discuss with the business, to play his role of business partner is on the right way, but not really in the real life, because he's spending too much time on the reporting. But if I compare with the figures of 2014, we can see that the time he's spending on reporting is quite lower this year, and the added value he has on planning and budgeting and on forecasting has improved. Nevertheless, we can see that the time he is spending on IT system, improving management information system, is low, and he believes that he does not have a high added value, which is quite astonishing, and probably we need a change on that if the management controller and the CFO wants to take the turn of big data and digital transformation. Before going to processes, perhaps some reaction from Cecile, from Stefano, as you want.
Yes, in fact, I think here we have some good news. We see that, in fact, the trend toward more business partnering from finance is becoming now for me a reality, because as soon as you spend less time on producing data and elaborating your forecast, whether in Excel or with a tool, but you have more time to spend with the operations and, in fact, to be more involved in the added value chain within the organization. At the same time, I was really surprised when I discovered this template, because I would have expected IT systems, business reviews, and internal audit risk management to be more on the right side. And I will focus really on two topics. So business reviews, obviously we don't expect here to spend too much time, but it should generate a lot more added value to the organization, because that's typically the place where, as a finance person, you can have challenging discussions with your business partners, bringing your financial point of view into the performance, into the strategy definition. So that's my first, let's say, point of surprise here. And the second one is on IT systems. And here I was a bit, I wouldn't say shocked, but very surprised, because if we are talking about IT systems for the transactional part or for the reporting, or IT systems for business analysis, for business analytics, I don't see how, as a finance person, you can, in fact, be sure that you work with proper data, that you in fact supply the organization with data quality, on time, with efficient processes, and with the right structure of information to support the strategy deployment and the decision-making process, if you are not involved up front. So for me, it's key as a finance person to work very closely with the IT function, with the IT department up front in the design of the solution and in the choice of the solution.
Thank you, Cecile.
Well, I echo Cecile's words in terms of business review. I think the business review is the core of a financial controller activity, which, by the way, I don't personally like very much financial controller as a name, even though I've been financial controller for quite a while, because it looks like more you're a policeman into the business. I'd like to see that kind of role more as a business partner in that respect. Probably performance manager, it makes more sense, and it's probably closer to the ideal profile that I have in mind as a financial controller. But with that said, I think business review are part of the day-to-day way to understand the business. I personally, get into the day-to-day business review of every business unit every month, and it's a good practice because it really helps you to understand how the business is going through the different geography. More than anything else, allows you to better understand how the future could look like if you really understand what's going on today. When we look at this, I mean, we see a certain number of activities, and I think more than listing the activities, there is still a significant amount of time that the finance organization spend in producing the data. And the amount of time that they spend in analyzing those data is still very marginal. I mean, I don't think it would be an exception if I say 30 to 70%, 30% value add in analysis of the data, 70% in production data. It's probably an equation that many of you would probably see within your company. We need to invert that equation. It's easy to say, much tougher to make it happen. But somehow we need to get to the point on which we do allow people to analyze and understand the number and not just get 5 seconds before a presentation with the number done and they have no clue what the big message looks like. And that's a challenge that I'm putting in my team, that's a challenge to put in myself, and I think it's a challenge that a lot of the finance organization has to have. Because again, systems don't allow us to necessarily get the data with the agility and the velocity that we need to. But the IT system should not be an excuse, in my view, not to be fast and agile and being able to analyze the number that we get. Because I think the underlying business performance, the things that are happening outside are changing so rapidly that we cannot just believe that the report that is going to be okay for this year, it's going to be the same for next year. Maybe next year there are new things that we're going to have to look at, a new report that we're going to have to create, so that the team has to continuously evolve and create a different set of report that would make obsolete the old one. So with that respect, we need to really much invest our brain, invest our thoughts in making sure that we have a set of data that allow us to really get the data in the way we want to customize and get them rapidly and allow people to spend more time in what I would say it's value-added time, analytical time.
Thank you. Coming back to the result of the survey, I will present the second chapter about processes. So about processes, we're asking different questions about budgeting, forecasting, planning. What we have seen in the past year is a real increase of use of running forecasts in different companies. The budgeting process is always judged as heavy, time-consuming, with a budget which is agreed after 3 or 6 months and which is already old-fashioned when it's finished. So during a couple of years, we had more and more running forecast processes, and what we can see is that companies are trying to reduce the time spent on the budget process to have a budget which is less heavy to produce with probably less indicator and lower level of details, just to be able to have a quicker budget, but also forecast, produce more efficiently. And what we can see is that more than 50% are producing their forecast in less than 1 week, which is a great change. So more agility in the processes of the management controller, which is important. In terms of KPI, key performance indicators, we have found last year a great process of cleaning after sometimes of adding indicators. Last year, management controller were in the process of cleaning their indicators. This year, it's much more stabilization. That means that the main challenge of the controller is not to add more information, but to really have the relevant KPI adapted to the right business model. And as Stefano was saying, to change the indicator if the model is changing. To finish with the process, what we can see is that the reporting are produced faster and faster, and you can see that the number of reporting produced between D+6 and D+10 last year has really significantly decreased, and the number of reporting produced between D and D+5 has really increased a lot. I think that this trend, which is covering all countries, start from the from the US, because US firms are generally producing their reporting faster, but now it's the case in every country, and I will not compare it country by country. Sometimes it's a little bit slower in some countries, but the trend is faster and faster. Any reaction, Jimmy?
Well, definitely the trend is for the reports to be generated faster. Using ERP software facilitates the process, plus additional, I guess, database management tools that will allow you to capture the required data within a certain period of time. In our case, it was a long journey, but at the end of the day, we were able to actually produce or close the books within D+3 days, considering that we have about 76 companies in the group that we have to consolidate, and there are subgroups of consolidation work that need to be done. But it doesn't end there. I guess the importance of business analytics is key. No? Effectively navigating through all of those data and producing information that we need for decision making. And there we also use analytics software that allow us to prepare management dashboards. So it's something that is happening. But the key is actually determining the right metrics at the end of the day. We may be measuring a lot of things, but if these are the things that do not really matter from a value creation standpoint, then it is a useless exercise. So we have to start from the basic, identifying what are the various metrics that generate value. And for that, we may have to use EVA, economic value-added concepts, or value-based management to identify what are the key drivers of value that we need to measure on a regular basis, and be able to produce that and extract that from, I guess, the maze of data that is available to all of us on a regular basis. So I think that's the challenge in every company. On the forward-looking metrics, that's also a challenge. Now, forecasting, for example, it's only as good as the assumptions that the individuals within the company provide you. So it is important that we also establish that kind of a mindset and make them accountable for what they provide, because these are the basis for making major business decisions. So they have to make sure that what they provide by way of assumptions are really realistic, so that management can be guided on making the right decisions.
Maybe I can add one more thing to this, because when I read processes, it reminds me, one of the things that I keep saying to my guys in my team most often, we shouldn't be trapped by processes. And what I mean by that, it's funny because I've been coming from the large American multinational, so I'm used to discipline and organization. I used to do and know exactly what to do when. But at the same time, I think sometimes the velocity in which the world is changing, it requires the companies to be more flexible in certain processes. And I give you one example that I think it's very important is the currency fluctuation. If we take the currency swings that all of you have seen in recent years, and we just take euro to US dollar as an example, probably if we look at the end of last year, most of the people would have forecasted the euro-US dollar ratio to be between 120, 130. And I'm talking about October, November, and even December time period. You look at the Bloomberg consensus, and you see that currency consensus around 120, 130. So most of the people that have exposure with US dollar would have probably put together their budget using that exchange rate. Guess what? We get into 2015, first few months, and the consensus changed completely. Most of the people would have probably bet that the overall exchange rate was a parity with dollar and euro. So that, by itself, it changed dramatically the scenario in which you look at a large part of many companies, our companies and many other companies. Thanks God that brings tailwind to the results, but more than anything else, bring the need for people in the finance organization to relook at their budget, to re-understand how is the pricing, to re-understand what is the profit and the top line generated in that specific part of the world, when maybe the budgeting process is already completed. So again, processes are important, and thanks God we have them, but one of the biggest challenges, one of the biggest paradox on which we live is that we shouldn't be trapped by those processes, even though they are important.
Yes, agility. Okay, to go quickly in the two last chapter, methodology, and we will finish with management information system, the tools. Methodology, we ask management controller what kind of methodology they are using. We covered benchmarking, balance scorecard, activity-based management, and zero-based budgeting. What we can see is benchmarking has increased during the 5 years of our survey. It has increased. Both external benchmarking, which is easier in some industry sector than others, but also internal benchmarking, comparing the different market, the different area inside the company. Balance scorecard is well established. Activity-based costing is something like decreasing in the different years, and zero-based budgeting is generally used by companies having a strong focus on cost cutting, because reducing the budget for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, at the 4th year, generally they are looking for other methodology. What we can say about those methodology is that there is something like a stabilization on traditional methods, and that probably there is something to reinvent and to redefine as new methodology to be able to cope with a new business model, but also with agility. New business model because as we have seen yesterday, companies like Uber and Airbnb or Booking.com does not have tangible assets. That means that evaluation of performance KPI are different for those companies, and the business model is quite different. That means in a world of very fast changes, the agility is essential, like we say, and that means that the methodology are different. Simulation, being able to reforecast very quickly, has to be probably reinvented, and it's one of the challenge of the management controller and the finance function in the next year. Then we will finish with management information system, which is linked to methodology somewhere. What we can see, what we have seen is that Excel is mainly used by the management controller in more than half of the company. Excel is a good tool, easy to use, but the management controller will not manage big data with Excel. So there is something to be done to be able to adapt the management information system to the new digital world and to change the management information system. What we can see is that half of the company have planned, I will come back to big data afterward. More than half of the respondents plan to redesign or change their management information system, which I think is a major objective to be able to manage this all this flow of information and to use big data for finance, not only for marketing, customer relationship, or fraud detection. About big data, we asked to our management controller their interest and the number of big data projects. What we can see is that in large company, more than 70% have a big data project in the pipe, not producing effects just now, but we can hope that it will be producing effects soon. And one thing that we did not address since yesterday morning is real-time data analysis. Most of our management controllers are saying that big data is obviously necessary, but real-time access to data, being able to analyze very quickly is very important to be more agile. That means that the software provider have to provide this kind of tools to be able to manage a huge quantity of data in real time, which is a real challenge. Not taking more time to manage that because time to analysis is essential. Perhaps some reaction about management information system, Jimmy?
Yes, I'd like to come back to the Excel famous topic. Obviously, I mean, the major parts of our, let's say, customers and the entrepreneur use Excel. They use Excel as well. We did a study, and 63% of the small businesses use Excel as well to invoice or to do the quotations. And it's not only about Excel; it's about having a lot of different systems in your organization. So what is at stake here is about simplification, so reduce the complexity for the entrepreneur in terms of tools, and about as well gaining in agility and integration of the solution. And I would say here it's not it's something software industry is working on and Sage is really focused on, and what's going to happen probably for these companies, that they're going to move from the Excel world to the new world of software with cloud solutions. Because the software industry today, it's about cloud, is a standard, it's mobility, and it's, you may have heard about the acronym, which is ATA-WADAC, which is in the software industry, I think we hear more and more, which is anytime, anywhere, any device, any content. And Sage signed a global partnership with Salesforce to offer to the small companies, to the small and medium businesses, in fact, a solution, an integrated cloud solutions to run all the, not only the accounting, but all the information management on these solutions. And for example, so it's for the executive of the company, and so they will be able to look at their revenue or their balance sheet or you know, the aging for their customers, for their receivables on the Apple Watch. So very easy, real time. So it's not for the CFO, it's not going to be the tool really just to look at or to book your entries, your accounting entries, but for the business to have really real-time information that is needed really to drive the business wherever you are, whenever you want. So I think it's a very important step for the companies to be able to move rapidly into these solutions.
Your slide?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. We'll come back to the conclusion, but very briefly, Jimmy wants to present his project. Jimmy.
Okay, let me just share our, I guess, journey at Ayala Land on how we dealt with this, all of these issues internally. It's been a long journey. It's not something that you can do overnight. We started, and it's still evolving as we speak, but to actually generate the right information for decision making, you really have to look at a lot of different pieces. So these are the challenges to the finance function. Definitely, as was indicated earlier, a significant time and effort spent on gathering data and generating insights, both from financial and non-financial data. And as a result of which, there's less time to engage in more value-adding activities in support of the new roles of the CFO, which is that of as a strategist and a catalyst as opposed to the usual stewardship and even operating role. No? So we believe that there is significant opportunity to tap technology-based solutions or innovations in enhancing the finance function. In our case, this is actually how we represent these are the forces that we believe will drive innovation in finance, as was mentioned by Cecile earlier. Mobility, definitely, business and process management, talent, cloud, big data, and I guess shared service are the different forces that can actually influence the way the finance function is carried out. And it's just a matter of tapping into this available technology to be able to address those concerns that I mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. Now, this is how we actually looked at it from our point of view, borrowing from a slide by Deloitte. The top, the blue, I guess, pie chart indicates how we add value to how we deliver value to the organization through operational finance, business finance, and specialized finance, primarily generating the reports, the usual reports, closing the books, I guess delivering the analytics, as well as looking at other areas like risk management, treasury, where we can deliver value. And to do that, we have to look at people, process, and technology. And at Ayala Land, we've actually leveraged on that. On the technology side, we relied heavily on the ERP software that we implemented about 10 years ago, which we continue to upgrade. We actually customized the ERP software then to suit the business model that we have, which is quite unique at that time. And now it's the standard for the real estate industry, in the Philippines at least, given the way we sell products. And then we've also used database management tools to allow us to extract data and then feed them into an executive information system using another tool to generate regular dashboards that we can access through mobile devices, iPads and iPhones that will allow quicker decision making by the different business units. No? And then, of course, internally, we also created software or systems, buyer reservation system or sales reservation systems that will allow our buyers to actually transact online using using the internet under a cloud infrastructure, and even sales or property specialists or sales guys to actually sell through mobile devices. So these are the things that we have done on the information and system side. On process and policy, we used workflow-enabled sales admin and accounting functions. We established shared service centers for accounting and sales admin that support the business, and of course analytics through the dashboards that I mentioned earlier. And we also are using a data analysis software that will allow us to continuously do auditing and continuously monitor each and every disbursement, as well as do more sophisticated analysis like spend analytics that will allow us to save on costs. And of course, on the organization and people side, basically decentralizing, putting in a balanced scorecard, and continuing to train and develop our personnel. And as a result of that, the CFO role is now able to discharge the other roles and functions, which the next slide will actually show, the last slide. And it's really, the fourth function is really the traditional role as a steward, making sure that we generate the reports and comply with the regulatory requirements. But increasingly, we believe that by automating those processes, the CFO can now progress towards, I guess, the more value-adding role of catalyzing change towards achieving company goals, I guess helping operations drive business performance, and helping the CEO craft strategy as well as implement that strategy as a partner to the CEO. So that's basically my message.
Thank you, Jimmy. As we're running short of time, a couple of words of conclusion. We have seen that the controller, the management controller, is involved in strategic tasks, that he's reducing the time he's spending on reporting and producing it faster to be able to be a real business partner. We have seen that benchmarking is quite general in different industry sectors, that Excel remains the predominant tool, and that probably a lot of things has to be done on management information system with the growing importance of big data and real-time access to data. So as a conclusion, and I will ask you to add some one or two couple of words, management controller has a key role to play for innovation of processes, both processes and tools. Processes means also agility and tools for transformation of the finance function. I would be happy to take questions from the audience, but I don't think we have a lot of time. So perhaps a couple of words of conclusion. Stefano, if you want to start.
Yes. Probably the question that I have, and many people sometimes ask me when they wanted to work in this function, call it, management performance or financial controlling, is how you define a successful financial controller. I think a successful financial controller is the person that is able, more than anybody else, to link number with processes, to go beyond the set of numbers that makes a profit and loss. But it's really able to understand what's behind that. The complexity of certain organization, and I take an example, my company, Luxottica, which manufacture, sells, and distribute glasses, 80+ million glasses every year, with a very complex supply chain, with a very complex operation activity, and a very complex distribution network between wholesale and retail. One of the must for my financial controller is that if he works in wholesale, he better understand what's happening on the retail side. He better understand how we manufacture the glasses that then we sell through our channel. So the more we are able to link numbers with processes, the more we are able to do that step beyond the profit and loss, the more we're going to have people that are going to be successful in what they're doing.
So, yeah. Just to complete and echo what Stefano said, so he mentioned just before agility as well. So it's about being able to link the numbers to the business, to the processes, to be agile, because when you see, I think of the presentation we got yesterday from Etihad, how quick the business model are evolving, how quick the business strategy is changing. Finance has to be up to speed. So we have to be very agile. But I would say on top of that, and on top of the challenge to be able to automatize the transactional processes or the data production, we have to be able now, I think, to manage big data, to use big data. And it will, for sure, generate some new, require some new skills, probably in finance, because you will need more and more people able to link this huge quantity of information, not always financial, to the performance, to the strategy, and obviously to the financial performance. And another challenge will be that even more than before, we have to be sure to make sure that the data, the financial data that is produced is excellent, because when we are talking about real-time data, we produce data to the business, and we have the salesperson or the looking at the receivable balance, you know, in his Apple Watch. It has to be just zero default. So we have no time then, you know, to put in place some controls. It has to be zero default from the first entry to the output. And so it even more requires excellence in the transactional and reporting processes.
Jimmy, to finish.
I think I've said enough earlier, but just to recap, I think the controller and the CFO effectively is in a unique position to actually add value to the company because of the amount of information available to him. So it's just a matter of taking that out, calling that information, and transforming into insights that will allow for better decision making. And today's world, the role has evolved, no? From being historical to forward-looking, from being reactive to being proactive, from being local to being global, and from being transactional to becoming strategic. So I think that's the challenge, and I think by putting in the necessary infrastructure to generate that kind of information and insight, the CFO or the controller will now be able to do those roles in that kind of a setting.
Thank you. If you want more information, you can have on the Sage booth. If you want to get this presentation, I can just drop me an email and I will send it to you. And the detailed result of the survey will be published in December. So you will be able to have access to all the details. Thank you for your performance, because we did it in just 50 minutes. So it's good. And thank you for the attention of the audience.